Okay, we are live here on LinkedIn, Twitch, and YouTube. This semester, our advanced social media and analytics class is going back to do our social media shows, but these are the first ones of the semester, and I'm so excited. And with me today is Angie, who is our wonderful GIA. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone for tuning in, for listening to the show. And I assure you, we have a very good team coming up. I'm very excited for what they have to talk to you about today. And I wish them luck. Good luck, Group 1.
They are going to knock it out of the park. I have heard their kind of flow for the show, what they're going to be doing, and I'm really, really excited. Hopefully right now we have some of our classmates starting to join the live feed. And I just want to say thank you again to not only the class, but also Angie and this wonderful team for coming together and putting together these amazing shows for us. I know they're really, really fun to do and allow us to kind of push the creativity on some of these sort of more conceptual concepts related to social media. If you're in the audience today, your job is pretty explicitly outlined on the announcement page. So if you haven't looked at that, go look at that. But participation is key. And we outline participation as things like commenting, asking questions, really being engaged with this team in the same way that you will hope that your classmates are doing that for you as well. Today's topic is on content creators, algorithmic visibility, and perhaps invisibility, as well as platform governance. And this relates really well to some of the earlier concepts that we had in this class. Is anyone not on the stage right now? Angie, I'll move you up for now. Everyone's here? This is Team 1. Welcome to the floor, Team 1. We are so excited for you. It's not quite the energy I had to send you off to spring break, but I am definitely excited to be here live on LinkedIn with all of you today. So this really starts the discussion of moving into liveness. I know on Monday we had a great discussion about the evolution of liveness, and today we're going to talk about these kind of like three technical aspects of what does it mean to be a creator in a platform governance and create self-governance. And I know this team is going to do a really rock star job with that. We have Claire with us today. We have Isabella, we have Adrian, we have Kevin, we have Sani, and we are so very excited to see your show today. I know for those of you in our class, welcome. Look at this. We see people commenting already. See, look, I just want to show the team. I can show their comments. So that's wonderful. Welcome. It's nice to see you. If you're following along with some of our class readings, two of the readings that are going to come up today, this one, Creator Governance in Social Media Entertainment by Stuart Cunningham and David Craig. And the other one that we're going to be talking about is by Sophie Bishop, Managing Visibility on YouTube through Algorithmic Gossip. Angie, before I send you back down, any words of wisdom for this team?
Again, I just wanted to wish you guys luck. I know you guys are a very good group of work. Just be confident, be comfortable, and again, be confident, comfortable, and just do your best.
Thank you so much, Angie. And with that, I know Claire will be starting us off today, so I am going to pass it over to you, Claire. I'm very excited to hear from your team, so take it away.
Hi. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. What if I told you that success on YouTube isn't just about the great content? It's more about the whispering secrets, testing theories, and about creators really decoding the algorithms. So today we're going to explore how beauty vloggers, influencers, and digital entrepreneurs use informal gossip and game the system, and why that really matters for the future of social media entertainment. We're going to break down the hidden forces shaping the digital world. Today we're diving into the secret language of YouTube.
Thank you for that introduction, Claire. But before we touch bases on that,
I'm going to go ahead also finish a little, sorry. So by the end of today, we're going to be able to see how algorithms dictate who gets to see what and what not, how gossip isn't just idle talk, it's a tool for survival in the digital economy, and how platforms hold immense power, but creators are pushing back through advocacy and industry influence. Okay, Go ahead, Kevin.
All right. Hi, guys. So before we touch bases on like what we mainly are going to talk about today, I'm going to discuss with you guys some news I found out about a week ago. So, do you remember Casey Anthony? Well, she's back in the media, and this time she's calling herself a legal advocate. Yeah, you heard that right. The woman, once dubbed one of the most hated in America, has taken to TikTok to announce her new career. So if you don't know who Casey is, let me refresh that for you. Casey Anthony, the Florida mother accused and then controversially acquitted of murdering her 2-year-old daughter in 2008, has been in and out of the public eye since her. She was found out not guilty of the murder in 2011, a verdict that was widely compared to O.J. Simpson's acquittal. People were shocked, outraged. This case was a media frenzy with like endless speculation and high emotions. While the prosecution argued that Casey used chloroform to kill her daughter and dumped the body in the woods, the defense spun a completely different tale. One that involved an accidental drowning and alleged cover-up for Casey's father. The jury ultimately felt there wasn't enough evidence to convict her. So let's fast forward to today, in 2025. Casey Anthony is back, and this time she's kind of just rebranding herself. As over the weekend, she posted a TikTok video filmed in her car, which she announced she is now a legal advocate. She even has a subtext where she plans to share legal insight and offer guidance to people facing legal issues. She says she wants to advocate for her daughter and help give a voice to those in need. All right, let's just sit with that for a second. Casey Anthony, someone who spent like months lying about her missing daughter before Kaylee's remains were found wrapped in duct tape in a trash bag in the woods. It's really something that's like disheartening to hear, you know? Is now positioning herself as like a legal expert. Is this the creator we really want to watch, share, and like and support? And not just any advocate. She specifically says she wants to advocate fighting for LGBTQ rights and women's rights, which is kind of an interesting choice considering she's just spent most of the last decade avoiding the public eye and being seen as one of like the most notorious legal cases in recent history. This isn't really the first time we've seen anything like this. If you guys remember Gypsy Rose, she was kind of brought back into the media and became like a TikTok influencer. I know there's other examples. Do you guys know any other examples of situations like this? If any of our viewers also know.
I remember it was wasn't it it's like ass. Who was it? Who was it?
Trevino, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a recent one that's happening like as we speak. And for those of you who don't know or haven't heard of Ash Trevino, she's on TikTok right now. That's where she blew up. She actually got famous for being in a relationship with somebody who's way younger than her. She's like in her late 30s. She has 2 kids who are teens, and the person that she was in a relationship with was actually her daughter's crush. Like that's how close in age they are. And she went out to go get with him and made her whole relationship public online. And she's infamous for sharing things she shouldn't be sharing and, putting her kids in uncomfortable situations. And she's recently even more in the spotlight for not being the best parent. Let's just say that. She was on a podcast. I don't remember who the podcast was with, but she basically admitted that her kids don't have beds, and that was a huge thing. So the person she was on the podcast with sent her money to get beds for her kids, and she actually just used the money to buy stuff for herself. So, and she's getting more and more popular, like as this happens and as more things are coming out about her. And I think somebody was talking about how she was also in relationships with people who are in jail. I don't really know the details of that. I don't know if any of y'all know more or have any more you want to hear about her.
It's really sad. It's really sad that like that is kind of like where like the attention goes to on TikTok nowadays. But a lot of people say, it's just the PR just to get views. So kind of going back to like Casey Anthony, like Others are questioning how exactly she qualifies for like a legal advocate. In her video, she claims she's been in the legal field since 2011, but I don't think there's really like any evidence that her jobs had to do with anything legal. She's presumably referring to her own extensive legal battles and research. But like, let's be real, is that really enough to like start giving legal advice? It's not the first time she's attempted at the comeback. Back in 2022, she did a 3.5 hour like Peacock documentary called Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies. Tour apart. The Guardian called it like a soft-focused vanity project from like a world-class narcissist. And despite trying to share her truth, it didn't exactly change public perception. But now she's trying again, and this time as an advocate. Let's talk ethics for a moment, though. Like, is it fair for someone with such controversial history to step into an advocacy role? Does her past qualify her from helping others? Or on the flip side, should we allow for the possibility that she's changed and has something valuable to offer? Does she deserve to be paid for millions of views on TikTok? Some argue that even people with troubled past can turn their lives around, and do others say this more like an attempt to like stay relevant? But I want to know what our viewers think. Is Casey Anthony's new career move genuinely an effort to help people, or just another attempt to rewrite her narrative? So make sure you guys leave some comments in there. I want to know what y'all have to say. Now, I mostly heard about this news through YouTube. A lot of video essays, just like people discussing the issue. And it's really interesting how YouTube pushes for this kind of algorithm for content creators. Or it could just be my algorithm to watch gossip on YouTube. But what I can describe this as is kind of algorithmic gossip. And I'm going to pass the mic to Sani because she knows a little bit more about this topic and she can give you the details about how it works.
Before we do that, can I ask a question? And can someone repeat the question you wanted the audience to answer? Can you repeat the question for the audience? And then I have a question for your team.
So repeat my question, right?
Yes, please.
All right. So the question is Casey's Anthony new career move an effort to help people, or do you guys think it's just another attempt to rewrite her narrative?
Thank you. I want to know, okay, so what you're describing sounds a lot like the self-presentation strategies that we've been talking about in class, and that sort of effort to build authenticity through sort of these, very tactical strategies in order to monetize their own content. Now, question I have for you in kind of linking it to today, before Sani really describes it in a more technical, academic, and more conceptual way, is I want to know what you think about the role platforms should play in the visibility and invisibility of actors sort of at the periphery, at the margins of what should and should not be acceptable. And how is that determined? And what role do they play? And should they play the role that they do? Do you understand what I'm getting at? Is like, what role does TikTok, what role does YouTube play in this, them having visibility? And should they have as much power as they do in determining these sort of peripheral actors in these spaces? So anyone on your team can answer, but I'm just curious of your thoughts without getting into the academic stuff yet. Like, what do you think about this?
I think it's wrong because, well, there's a lot of young people on TikTok, especially, like they're really easily influenced. And so when they see stuff like this, like, oh, like this is the way to like gain traction on the internet. This is how, like, just doing these horrible things. Like I see it a lot when I'm on TikTok or when I'm on YouTube. Like it's just people like, saying something controversial, That's really how like, people like get all these millions of views. And I'm not sure what TikTok can do to like kind of like take out of visibility. I don't think they can, because we have free speech. Like we're allowed to like talk about almost anything on the internet. Like obviously there's like some restricted stuff we cannot talk about. But I think what helps is like just like it really has to be on our part. I feel like like we as just a society have to realize that these things that we're watching on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram Reels aren't really like, best for us. You know, like there's the issue of doom scrolling. Like we kind of just want to like look at stuff for like, hours. I'll sit in bed and I'll look at like TikTok videos. I'm like, oh no, like I cannot be doing that. But just kind of put more focus towards like, you know, creators that have talent, you know, people that are doing genuine things, good things online. Because, and then I think Adrian's gonna touch kind of like on, you know, platform governments, and he'll kind of do a little bit more about that too. But
I
yeah,
had
that's
something
my
to
thought.
say.
Claire, please jump in.
I feel like it's disappointing that she's starting to have a platform, but at the end of the day, we're the ones, the consumers are the ones allowing it to happen. We're the ones commenting, liking, viewing it. So I feel like overall the purpose of this topic is to just bring awareness to the fact that algorithms are a very real thing and that we do need to put our focus towards people that actually do have talents and not people that probably killed their daughters. Thank you.
I'm curious what Isabella thinks because I noticed that she was nodding her head as I was speaking, and I'm curious what you're thinking.
Yeah, so kind of just going off of what both of them said, I think that platforms do have a lot of power in what they're putting on our screens, what we're seeing more of. But at the same time, they put people such as Casey Anthony on our algorithm so much because they know that that's what we want to hear about. They know that we like the gossip. And no matter what, like we always want to know what's going on with other people, especially when they have so much coverage on the news in the past. Like she's recently coming back. It was the same thing with Gypsy Rose. Like she was in prison for so long. She comes out and then she's everywhere. And it's because we haven't heard from her. We want to know what's going on. We want to know what she's going to do. It's the same thing with Casey Anthony. So they know that we're interested in this. That's why they're putting it on our screens more. And yeah, if we want to see less of this, we really just have to, it's in our hands to change what we're looking at and putting our attention onto people who maybe deserve to be in the spotlight more.
I want to build off of what Isabella just said, and I'm going to point this towards Adrian and Sani because they haven't yet spoken. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is there is an infrastructural prioritization of sensationalism. What I'm saying by that is the platform is making a determination to put what it knows that we're already going to like, and it's going to put those more sensational stories on our For You page. It's going to make it more visible to us, you know, especially as we click, comment, like. So it's not just like a one-sided thing. So do you think that prioritization of sensationalism by an algorithm, by a platform, is an economic decision as well? Adrian and Sani, what do you think? Not to put you on the spot.
No, you're so good. I was just thinking of like a way to word this. The way the algorithms like know what we want to see and like they're constantly pushing it towards us, it's um trying to understand I'm sorry, what do you mean by if it's economic? Oh, my audio is broken.
No, your audio is not broken. I just did what I told all of you not to do. I talked with my mic off. No, so that was my fault. What I mean by that is the more people who comment, like, share a post, the better off it's going to get play, the more likely they are going to be able to put ads around it, the more likely they're going to be able to use that data to sell it to advertisers or for other economic purposes. So is there an economic benefit to the platforms for prioritizing through algorithms more sensational content?
Oh, 100%. That's where that's how they're gonna make all their money because it's gonna keep drawing people back to their platform. 100%. I mean, I know I open Reels like 10 times a day just because I know that my feed is hilarious, and I know that my friend probably won't think the same thing, but that's because my feed is catered to me, and I know I'm gonna go back probably right after this interview or this live stream because I love Reels to like better than TikTok to be honest.
Good. Sunny, anything you want to add to that?
No, yeah, I totally agree with That's how they do get their money. That's how they benefit from it. And back what Isabella was saying with like platforms and stuff, like having kind of like control, like creators kind of get upset about this. Like they're not only dealing with kind of unfair algorithms, but also the platform itself. And so you kind of see, and this is where like I'll get into the algorithmic gossip and share knowledge within these platforms on what creators have to deal with in order to even get recommendations or visibility when it comes to their content.
Now, I know you want to move along, but there's a bunch of questions. So Evan has asked a question here. Can someone read it out?
Do you think audiences have a responsibility to avoid
The
engaging
audience.
with con? Oh,
That was
Sorry,
strange.
it's kind of a delay.
nah, no worries. You can go if you want.
All right, I'll do it. Do you think audiences have responsibility to avoid engaging? Yeah, I really do think it just falls under the responsibility of like the audience. I don't know, maybe, conspiracy theory, maybe there could be just that the platform does regulate it themselves. But
We're
I'm
not
not
doing
sure.
conspiracies. No. Yeah, it's possible. That's true. Yeah. Can we move on to another question? Just because, and I'll get maybe Claire to do this one, just so that we are moving through different people.
So, quick question. I know there's people who hate watch. Does that affect others' algorithms? What do you mean watch?
I think this is like a hate watch.
Yeah, hate watching.
Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe you can explain, but the way I'm interpreting this might be different.
Um,
Like you're like, okay, for example, when Jake Paul was the head of whenever he was gonna fight, like basically anybody, every time he fights anybody, people are watching him because he's the villain. Like they want to watch him lose regardless of what he's doing. So people are tuning in to hate and stuff like that. Like that's the prime example.
mhm.
My kids even did this with the Super Bowl. They really did not want the team that lost to win. So we all do this in different ways, and so it's not like a unique or novel thing to social media. But Claire,
I
any
mean hate watch. I was
Yeah.
reading them as like hate watch.
like watching hate
Yeah.
or
Okay.
hate embedded in the watch.
Okay.
The
So
gaze of hate.
I feel like yes, to an extent, just because, if it's really popular, the algorithms are very crazy codes, like I don't know exactly, but I think if a certain number of people are tuned in, then yeah, they're gonna push it on other people's things, test out the waters. So yeah, unfortunately.
And I'm gonna put this one to Sani, and that will hopefully be our segue into your section. But Anthony says gossip is just a human curiosity, isn't it?
So yeah, well, algorithm gossip is exactly how creators try to figure out platforms, especially like the YouTube system. And since the platform doesn't really have like a guidebook on how to get recommended works, creators are left self-reliant on themselves to try to figure it out. And deeper into the article by Sophia Bishop, she talks about how YouTubers, especially beauty bloggers, what they deal with when it comes to visibility and trying to get their videos seen. And this honestly can make or break a creator's success, especially since YouTube doesn't really explain how the algorithm works. And this is where the gossip comes in. Since the algorithm is such a mystery, creators share tips and theories and strategies with each other to try to crack this code. And then dive deeper into the article, she explains on how beauty vloggers, how they have to exchange these insights on trying to make their videos perform well. Unlike tech experts, these creators aren't officially recognized for their algorithm knowledge, but in order to stay relevant on the platform, they have to figure this out. And so a lot of them started believing like uploading more Making longer videos or even using keywords can boost their chances of getting recommended. And so this knowledge kind of becomes like a survival tool on YouTube to navigate through this unpredictable system. But not everyone has equal access to this knowledge. Some creators are in private Facebook groups to get this information, while other creators rely on public platforms such as Twitter. And this is where they share their frustrations and their theories, but it's honestly not just about venting, but it's also a way to try to gain support and visibility from their audience. Because one of the biggest issues creators have to deal with is YouTube's lack of transparency. You know, a lot of them completely feel ignored when they ask for answers. And because of this, some have started crowdsourcing data from their followers. In the article, they explain how beauty vloggers like Carly, Rowena, and Rachel Levin, they used Instagram polls and Twitter posts to ask fans if their videos were even getting, even showing up in their feeds. And doing this DIY research, this helped track the shifts of the algorithm that YouTube wouldn't really confirm that was changing. And so what this pretty much means for creators is that in order to get noticed, they kind of have to adapt to these mystery rules that YouTube got going on. And even if they do everything right, success still isn't guaranteed because the algorithm itself doesn't treat all creators the same. And beauty blogger Gracie Victory, she speaks about this in her video, Does YouTube Discriminate? And she touches on how YouTube promotes more white creators over Black or brown influencers. And she gets into depth on how the top YouTubers, most of them are white, and how YouTube prioritizes similar creators. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, and so this is where we see a shift between the gossip into resistance. You know, now these creators aren't just sharing tips anymore. They're now calling out on these biases and challenging YouTube's claim on, oh, success is just about making good content. You know, vloggers are now even trying to change their own content to try to fit what they think YouTube wants. And let's be real, trying to outguess the algorithm is exhausting. You know, the uncertainty of whether their content would be seen or demonetized creates some instability within their careers, making it harder to sustain a career. And instead of just focusing on being creative, they're stuck in this never-ending cycle of trying to stay in YouTube's favor. And so one of the big questions is, you know, is the system really fair? Creators aren't just dealing with algorithms, but, you know, what we touched on, they're dealing with the platform itself. And trying to work within rules that they didn't create and fully don't understand can be very daunting. And, you know, what we also touched on, like this brings up something bigger. How much power do creators actually have in this system? Do creators have power to push back, or are they stuck playing by these rules? And, you know, creators spend years building careers on these platforms only for one expected change to take it all away. And that's the risk that they have trying to rely on these platforms for income. And so with that, I know Adrian can dive a little deeper into this.
No, yeah. So I was just like thinking, like, imagine you're like grinding your whole life, you're making content, you're on YouTube or Instagram, whatever it may be, and then a policy changes or something happened and your entire income is gone. And that's not even a hypothetical because like that's happening to a lot of like smaller creators and people that are trying to just make a living based off of making this content. And today I'll be covering the article by Stuart Cunningham and David Craig called the Creator Governance in Social Media Entertainment. And social media entertainment, like SME, is basically just the platforms we use like YouTube, Instagram, etc. And the question we have is just like, are creators actually in control of their careers, or are they just pawns run by these platforms? And I think
Just wait, just wait, just
they're
wait. That's a really good question. It looks like we can comment in this internal chat in a way we've never been able to. So can one of your team members, I want you to repeat it. One of your team members is going to post it, or I can post it. but we're going to get the audience to engage with that question before you go into your chat, because that is a really good question. So, question for the audience. Can you say it again?
Oh, sorry. Are creators actually in control of their careers, or are they just pawns in a game run by these platforms?
Thank you. Oh, you can continue. It's going to take them a minute and a half to hear this.
All right, for sure. Um, well, yeah, these creators that are just trying to like build their entire brands on these platforms, they are the platform. Like they fuel the engagement on all these platforms. They're bringing the profit in for these companies. They're basically the foundation. And despite this, they're not even included in the decision-making process, which I personally believe is unfair. Like YouTube makes billions in ad revenue every year, yet all these small and mid-sized creators have no say. And I know there's a group that was being built in like 2018-19 era, the Internet Creators Guild, the ICG. And it was founded by Hank Green, and he's of like the Vlogbrothers and the VidCon side of YouTube and stuff. And they advocate for creators, but it got shut down in 2019 because it's a lack of funding. And you'll see like a common theme with that, with like all these people coming together. It's just it never seems to work out. And another question I have for you guys is, do you guys think like platforms should like require to consult with the creators or like on major changes on the platform, or do you think they should have no say? Like I know it's kind of similar, but like I'm kind of thinking in the sense of like a creator board, like a board of like a head of people that are already high up, like in the YouTube space or Instagram space, whatever it may be, and they could be a part of the decision making as well. Um, and speaking of governance, there's a type of governance called top-down control. Um, this took in 2017, advertisers like AT&T, Johnson and Johnson, Pepsi, etc. They were pulling all of their ads and commercials off of YouTube because they were noticing that their ads were being displayed on extremist content. And this was like the worst type of content, like ISIS recruiting videos, like anti-Semitic, all the worst stuff you can really get to. But um, instead of just removing this content, they just changed the entire monetization system, which was the birth of the adpocalypse. And unfortunately, this mass demonetization, it basically flagged any content that was remotely controversial, and it made it very difficult for these smaller independent creators to be able to maintain a living. And it also affected people that were even discussing like things that really matter, like things we should be bringing attention to, like mental health advocates, news channels, LGBTQ creators. They saw huge revenue drops. And this was all just because of the advertiser rules that were changing. I think of like an exact example. Casey Neistat, he was trying to do a he was trying to raise money for people that were in the Las Vegas shooting like a few years ago. And his charity video got demonetized instantly while all the other mainstream news outlets were covering the exact same thing, and they were all monetized. So this kind of gives you like a look to see how these platforms are like being unfair to like the creators that are actually the foundation of the platform. And with that, the algorithm was using AI to aggressively demonetize these videos, and it started affecting like other like everyone to the point to where the term shadow banning became a thing. And even TikTok was caught suppressing content for the LGBTQ, and they admitted it because they said they were limiting the reach for bullying, which I don't understand for the most part. Um, I don't think that that's the answer to try to stop bullying. That just doesn't seem right to cut off an entire category or group of people. Like that's not fair. But um, and these platforms also have government influence because as well as like their own policies that they have to follow, they also have to follow like the laws of like the state and country. Like, for example, um, there's these government regulations that can hurt these independent creators. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or the COPPA, it forced YouTube to severely limit content targeted to kids because it was due to like privacy concerns, and they didn't want um, a lot of like they didn't want to really like attract the kids for some reason, even though that's their main selling point at the moment. Like a lot of their money is from these kids videos, and this resulted in lost ad revenue, um, comments, overall interactions were just being killed in the audience, which is needed for these people. Like they need the audience interaction. It's not fair. And they use vague guidelines to control the flagged content. So whenever it would get flagged, it would just say for inappropriate content, or it would get flagged for kids, even though it was like a video about the news or something, or like you're making commentary. And that leads to another question I have for you guys.
Before you ask another question, we need to go back to the other question first. So we have a ton of comments.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Evan says, I do think that a lot of content creators don't have as much control as we think. Many creators can lose monetization off of a one slip. We've seen this so many times where creators get in hot water because they made a comment that, then ended up creating problems. And oftentimes it's not the creator's fault. They're baited by the viewers in their comments. I think this synchronicity or symmetry that we see between audiences and the creators can sometimes cause this problem, especially in live environments like YouTube, Twitch, etc. So I think Evan's spot on. And this can result in them being suspended. You'll notice in the chat, for those of you who are in the room right now, but also I'm going to say this verbally just because I think it's really interesting. I got like a random Twitch comment. I don't even know what it means. It's not related to this class at all. And then I'm going to try and go back up here, but there are some related comments as well. Geraldo says, no, I do not believe it because creators cannot control their own work. Now, can we just pull into on page 4 of this article? One thing that I do think is really interesting is they say platforms do not license or own creator content. And that's just like a core provision of all platforms. It's like they don't own the content they post. And so this becomes like a safe harbor rule. So creators are not exclusive on a particular platform. This affords creators the agency to engage in a raft of commercialized communication practices across multiple platforms. Now, I think this is interesting because it's like we have control, but we have control in different kinds of ways. So they aren't controlling the content, which allows creators to have some flexibility and agency over being on these multiple platforms for potentially multiple monetization strategies. But it also begs the question of, and I'm going to pull back to something that you may or may not have heard, which is Mark Zuckerberg made this offhand statement, and I can't remember what zine, but it was published in the spring, maybe even in the fall, I can't remember. But he said something to the effect of like, of course we can train AI with the creator's content. So I kind of want to just like put this back on you. Like, does that add another layer of, control to the system where if AI is now going to be able to just like train you off of your content creator data and then use that to become their own content creators, which we know over the holiday break, not the spring break, the actual holiday break. We know that Meta was playing around with these like AI or virtual influencers who weren't real people, and they got in hot water over that. So I just want to put that question out to your team.
Could you repeat the exact question again?
There isn't like an exact question so much as it's a multi-part, what do you think? So one is that Mark Zuckerberg has said, like, I don't see any problems with our AI being trained on content creators' content. So, right there, we know that that's happening. Number two, we know that Meta has already been playing around or piloting out these AI or virtual influencers, presumably because then they only monetize themselves, right? Like, but anyway, so my question here is that another limitation for creators? So even though you're able to post your content, you're in this sort of free harbor space where you can go across platforms, is this going to become a problem if their work is then being replicated by AI that's being these sort of like virtual influencers that the platform themselves are creating to kind of take away so that they can keep all the monetization themselves? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's unfair. I also think it's gonna fail, if I'm being honest, because we also see like, AI imaging is already like growing accurate, but um, most of new people, like most of like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that stuff, it's really the older generation that kind of falls for it. We like are able to like just kind of like notice it a little bit more better, and I think it's also just not really gonna be like that interesting, possible to like replicate like what other content creators do. It kind of dead internet theory where it's like is it really all just gonna be run by like AI chatbots, AI content, AI this? Like, is there really gonna be like any more like content creators? But I think we see kind of like a rebellious face with the younger generation with that, like kind of just like support that. And yeah, that's kind of just how I see it.
I have some thoughts on this as well. I was just thinking, like, I think it's unfair because, um, and not okay, not like completely at first, because your question you asked like if it's like complications or if it causes any problems. I don't think at first they're not gonna even know. They're just gonna be making their content, and then eventually it's gonna lead to them like the thing with Facebook did where they're making all these things where they're. But I think the problem is that they're trying to profit off of our content that most people are doing for free. Um, and I just think of that idea is not something that anyone would like to know, is that like if they upload a video to YouTube, their face and likeness is going to be used to make profit for a company. Um, and sorry, I'm trying to think.
Does that mean you think that it's an exploitation of labor, right? Like every time we post
Yes,
media, it's a form of labor. Sorry,
that's what I'm trying to get to. Thank you. Yes, it's like that. It's an exploitation, 100%. I had more thoughts, but then I got lost trying to think of what I was trying to say.
no, that's okay. You have a million comments here. I can't keep up. But maybe just move on and I'll slowly roll through them.
Um,
We're about to ask your second question.
yes. I wanted to ask you guys if platforms are protecting. It's kind of the same. Like, are they protecting their policies? Like, are they protecting their own self and their ad revenue, or are they trying to protect the users with these policies? Or like, basically, like, are they looking out for themselves or looking out for the users? And I genuinely believe that obviously they are not looking out for the user. But that is up for you guys to decide as well. I want to see what you guys think. Um, I just have a feeling that y'all will agree with me.
I just think Juan's answer to your original question is really good. For certain platforms, like specific to streaming, like Twitch, it's very strict. So I feel there are the pawns rather than the open format platform per se, like YouTube, where anyone could essentially post anything. That's interesting. What do you think?
Oh, um, no, exactly. Because I mean, I tried Twitch, and it's a really hard platform to grow on from nothing. Like they really, I feel like, are against you at all times. And that just reminded me what a previous point that we were talking about, the AI thing. I feel like YouTube and things like that, long form content. I don't think AI can really replace long form content 100% because people are. I mean, at least I do. I know I do. I sit down to watch a person rather than, especially for like shorts and stuff. The short form content can easily be replicated with AI because we're just trying to get that like short dopamine boost, that little swipe that feels good every time you're looking at something funny. But I don't think that they can really ever like recreate that, or I don't think YouTube would ever be fully replaced by AI in long form content, at least. But sorry, I just wanted to bring that up because that was really like that's what I was thinking when we were talking about before when I lost my train of thought.
It does look like some questions are coming in, but maybe we can pass it over to maybe Isabella or someone else to read some of them. So maybe Isabella can read this one.
Okay, so this one says, if AI can copy your work, do you think that is fair to those working hard? And personally, I don't think it's fair because, like we were saying, these people are working for free. Essentially, they're not getting paid right away. Like they're only getting profit if it's getting views. And if it's going to be copied by AI, it's going to make their work seem less original, which is going to, essentially draw people away if they're falling for the AI or giving more into the AI than they are to the actual person's work. So it's not putting them in a fair position to get their original work out there into the public if AI is going to be taking their ideas before it gets the chance to actually gain them views and interactions.
Thank you, Isabella. Claire, this one's for you. Foster says, do you think increasing creators' revenue shares would lead to a more fair system?
I feel like revenue share, as in like how much they're making.
Yeah, I think it's like the percentage point. It's different on every platform, but they all get like a certain number per 100,000 clicks or whatever, 100 views.
I feel like the platform itself is the one that is gonna be more against this because I feel like the whole point is for them to make more money. So maybe I don't understand the question, but
You answered it. That's great.
okay.
I want to go to Sahi only because you already kind of touched on this and sort of the inequities embedded into some of those structures. So do you think this would solve the problem or would it exacerbate it?
You know, at first I was like, like, could this make it more competitive for creators? Could this make this more fair? And I don't know. I'm kind of in between. Yeah, I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I feel one, it could help, but then one, it couldn't. I don't know.
Thank you. Evan says they're definitely looking out for themselves, but there are special cases like Aiden Ross and other top streamers that have been granted certain immunities to the policies due to their large followings and are given breaks that are sometimes smaller creators are not granted. This is so funny because I have some work on Aiden Ross, and yeah, I think that's 100% an accurate statement. What I've been thinking about in relation to Aiden Ross in particular, and some of the people like that, is how interesting. So Pierre Bourdieu talks about sort of capital in, we have like political capital, we have economic capital, we have cultural capital. And typically we've thought about maybe traditional journalists as having more economic and political capital, but maybe less cultural capital. And these sort of content creators as having more cultural capital. But one thing with the Aiden Rosses and Hassan Abis of the world that I think is starting to transpire is that we're starting to see these content creators with millions of dollars. And so they definitely have economic capital. Look at how their relationships are with some other places. Like, for example, Aiden Ross did that podcast during the campaign. So we can see political capital there. And they obviously have cultural capital. So we can start to see sort of the way capital is emerging through content creators is changing. But that's just like my initial reaction to some of the behaviors I've been watching transpire with particularly Aiden Ross. But I'm curious what you think. If anyone follows Aiden Ross or people like that, do they have immunity? Or perhaps more immunity?
I'm gonna go back to Ash Trevino because that's just the person that I know the most about right now. But I would say that she is also granted a lot of immunity, especially on TikTok, because I'm going to get into this later, but their guidelines are very hard to follow. If it's easy to get shadow banned and all of those things, like as we're talking about on other platforms. But I've seen her do a lot of stuff, especially on live, that she has gotten away with. I don't know for sure, but I think she was shadow banned for like a little bit at the very beginning of her career, so to say, but she hasn't. Like, that hasn't happened to her again. And she's able to say things and put out stuff that most people wouldn't be allowed to. I know that there's a lot of people on TikTok, or there's certain words that you can't say on TikTok. If you say a specific word, then they'll just take your whole video down. So there's, and it's not even anything crazy, but she's able to do and say a lot worse and have her account up. And I think it all just goes back to, like, she's getting views, she's getting more people going onto TikTok to see her stuff. That's getting the platform more money, that's getting her more money. It's just a big, it's all connected.
Really good response. One thing that I'll say is, one thing that I have observed with some of my empirical work is that if you are a top Twitch streamer or a top anything content creator, you are more likely to be let back onto the platform, even if you violate the policies. And the reason for that is because they are bringing in big money for the platform. And so we can see 100% the platform governance structures changing. They're plastic and elastic. They're flexible. They're bending and shifting and reshaping in order to meet these sort of monetization goals that a platform has, which I think is really interesting. I also brought Angie up because I don't want to read your comment, Angie. I want to hear from you. So take it away for a second.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read what I wrote and then continue. So, although creators can control the content they produce, I would say that they're pawns within a game. Since that content is highly controlled by the platform, there are guidelines for copyright accreditation, and you also mentioned biases against minority influencers that can that can lead to your content being demonetized, even if you didn't think it was going to be demonetized. You guys mentioned that it can be like just the smallest mistake, and it's over essentially. And it's hard to come back after that. But I do think that it is mainly up to the platforms themselves to change. But in order to do that, viewers and I guess content creators themselves need to kind of force them to change. And I kind of want to bring an example. Selena Gomez, this was a while ago. Selena Gomez created had a live stream on TikTok. And while she was live streaming, viewers were sending her money and gifts. And there was like a realization during the live stream that it was like real money, real gifts, not just like a little like platform little toy. And she was like, oh my gosh. And she was panicking, trying to figure out how to stop the money from coming. And then when she couldn't figure it out, she just ended the live stream. So there is a sort of awareness there where they understand when something can be, I guess, predatory or when it's being exploited. She didn't want to take the money from the viewers. She just wanted to stream content. So I do think that it is a team effort between the viewers themselves to make sure that the videos that they want to see and should be seen get views. It's up to the content creators to ensure that the content that they're producing should be viewed. And then it's up to the platforms themselves to kind of mitigate what some equality and some fairness in the field. But I guess I just wanted to get your opinion on this matter. What do you think, like between platform content creators and viewers, that their roles are in this mission to make the algorithm more fair?
That's a tough question. Ask it again one more time so they have time to think.
Yeah. Okay. So between platforms, content creators, and viewers, what do you think their roles are in making the algorithm more fair?
I feel like that's like the $1 million question. If you can answer that, go work at all the top companies.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
This is something I think a lot about right now. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say, I think for content creators, they could kind of just make aware to their audience. It's kind of like just talk about. I know it works pretty well. Like just letting your viewers know, like, oh, like what YouTube is doing is unfair. Like this is how they're taking money from me. to these other situations where like these people are getting money that don't deserve it. And then up to the viewers, I think, just following those steps, kind of just like not support the bad content, you could say. Just kind of like, even if you're like how like someone said earlier, like hate watching, like just, we shouldn't really do that. Because we're still sending in that support. That's like how they say, like bad publicity is like still good publicity. You really don't want to do that. And then for like the platforms, I think it's kind of just like catering to like kind of like what the people want, like kind of just like, because I also think that there can just be like good publicity, not to all just be like that. Like, why does something have to be like drama, gossip, or like just like this overall like horrible behavior from like Ash Trevino, like Casey Anthony, like, and people like that. Like, why is that being pushed to the top? I think people also just see like more talent when it comes to being online. Like, we really don't want to influence the new generation to like follow into those footsteps.
To kind of, I guess, add on to what you're saying about content creators, Adrian, you mentioned something earlier, very interesting, the little hypothetical of kind of like a board of content creators between each platform to kind of help manage that content. And again, keep the algorithm fair. And I kind of wanted to play with that a little bit about how would you think those content creators on that board could be decided? What would give them, what would make them different than other creators and give them that authority? And then a second part to that question is, do you think transparency is something that should be encouraged, or do you think that would be something that would work against content creators' favor if everyone knew how it worked behind the scenes? And by this, I mean like, oh, this is what I did to help the algorithm. Oh, this is what I did to get more likes and views. Isn't that kind of getting rid of your niche?
Well, I personally feel that even if everyone in the world had the same knowledge on how to make content, I still feel like it's mostly personality, and that's what most people are there for. And I think it's hard to replicate someone else's personality. So I think if that is your goal, is to just try to make bank and not be yourself, and you know just do all this stuff. I mean, I don't think it would work in the long run, at really. But um sorry, my brain is wasn't train of thought. Could you repeat that question, the first part of the question, not the second part? Yeah.
Yes. I like your answer with the transparency one. Like you're right. Like if everyone has the same knowledge with the algorithm, then I guess it's a bit more fair. It's up to you and not just the platform. And my earlier question was, with your hypothetical board of content moderators, what would make them different? What would make them give them the responsibility as opposed to other content creators? What would your standards be?
um Honestly, what makes this most sense to me is like who's been, I don't know if it sounds fair, but maybe who's been there the longest. Like, for example, YouTube. I would put Rhett and Link there because they're Rhett and Link. Like they belong at in that board of, like, they're like the top of YouTube. Like, I remember being a little kid and they're still all my recommended. Like, it's crazy. Um I just think I think it takes a lot to like know who would be, like, how to pick who would be part of the board. But I just think um yeah, just like people that have been there longer, they're more knowledgeable on the policies and how things work. So I think that would be a fair way to do it.
I kind of want to touch on the transparency part real quick. So as far as I do think there should be some type of clearness, but I do also think that the lack of it does create some type of competitiveness within the creators, not really knowing the algorithm. So it kind of pushes them to create content to get like views and recognized and stuff. But I do think it's unfair on how much like they don't know, like the how much of lack of the transparency is in platforms. But I do think there should be a little bit unclearness just for that competitiveness within all the creators on there.
Yeah, that's
Okay, I'm gonna move Angie down, and I'm gonna let you guys go back to doing whatever you need to be doing at this point, keeping in mind that we have about 20 minutes left. Oh, I said 20, 15. 15.
I'll just wrap up my part then, because I'm basically about done. I was just gonna touch on a little bit like how they could move forward, like with the future regulations and whatnot. Like,
I feel like you can do that. There's time.
all right, 100%. I just think that like future regulations that could protect content creators, where like you guys said, transparency and algorithms, um, protections under unfair demonetization. So or sudden policy changes. So, like, let's say a policy changes and it affects you, it wouldn't be effective immediately. It would give you some time to be able to work around what you got to do. Creator unions um, like the Internet Creators Guild, um, and for example, for like regulations that could benefit the creators. In the EU Digital Services Act of 2022, it forced platforms like YouTube and TikTok to be more transparent about their algorithms. So I think, and I think that's just in the EU. I'm not sure if that like is over here as well, but if it's not, I think it definitely should be. Um, and I guess wrapping this up, creators fuel the internet, but they still don't own their career. So I just don't know if in the next few years, like if it'll ever change, but yeah, pass the torch to Bella.
Yeah, so expanding off of the article that Adrian just talked about and everything else that we've been discussing, I'm going to dive a little more into the recent push for change in creator governance on TikTok specifically. So there has been rising concerns over content regulation and creator rights, like as we've been talking about, on platforms such as TikTok. There's been some movements emerging that are advocating for creator governance, and this is about giving content creators more control and representation in the platform policies. So what's happening is TikTok influencers are leading the charge and pushing for a creator council. The council would consist of just a group of actual content creators on the platform that would ensure that other creators have more say in the platform decisions that are directly affecting them as a whole. And this is all in the works because there has been a lot of frustration growing among the creators from things that we were just talking about, like I said. So, vague content moderation rules, algorithm changes that aren't fair, and the revenue distribution that's not transparent. So, their proposal is a creator council that would be an independent body that's working with TikTok's management. And their goal is to establish clear content guidelines, fair monetization, and transparency in the content takedowns. And overall, the creators just want to protect their rights and ensure that they have a voice in the decisions that are affecting their livelihoods. Because, as we've briefly mentioned, there are many content creators that are creating this content, and that's their form of living. I know that we talked about that in class the other day, but there's a lot of people who are relying on the content and their content being pushed out to make them more money because that's their form of income. And for most people, that's their main form of income that they're relying on. So yeah, this matters because TikTok creators are key to the platform's success, yet they often feel sidelined when it comes to the major decisions that are being made. And many believe that the platform policies tend to prioritize corporate interests over creator welfare. So they're only worrying about themselves. They're not worried about the people that are actually on the platform and making them the money. And other platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and X are closely watching because this movement could spread across the entire social media industry. And if it does succeed, it could reshape how social media platforms operate and interact with the creators. and it raises important discussions about digital rights, transparency, and fairness in the creator economy. And it's challenging the top-down power dynamics of platforms and advocates for a more democratic model of governance on these platforms. So yeah, as social media continues to dominate entertainment, these governance reforms could significantly impact how these platforms are evolving and affecting creators. And with more people relying on platforms like TikTok for their livelihoods, the concept of creator governance challenges their traditional power structures and puts more control in the hands of the creators. Yeah, so that's the latest on TikTok's push for creator governance. Does anybody have any opinions they would want to share about this? Or what do y'all think about the push to start this creator council? Do y'all think it's going to work? Do y'all think it's going to be shut down like other stuff that's happened in the past?
I'm like scared to like interrupt anybody, so I kind of gave it a little delay. So, I think, kind of just touching back on like what Adrian said, I think it'd be fair if like the people who's been on TikTok the longest kind of like governed that situation. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on that.
I think I just replicated the question and I put it on the screen to make it easier for the audience to contribute as well. So if the audience could come into the chat, that would be really, really great. I think it's a really cool idea and I hope it works. But I'm also skeptical that it will work in the way that we would want it to work in the best possible way, if that makes sense. In an ideal world, we would give more power to the creators, and this would include sort of a cross-platform council that, things became more uniform for them. Because as we know, the monetization on different platforms, as we've discussed over the semester, are so different. And so, really, if we could create this on an even bigger scale, that would be very cool. So I think starting there, and if it could succeed and then form out, that would be really interesting. I'm curious what Claire or Adrian think while we're waiting.
Um, I honestly think a TikTok like creator council is honestly don't know how that would work because everyone and I say this because I know YouTube is the same. Like YouTube, everyone's YouTube is different, but for the most part, it's like I feel like YouTube isn't as different. So like you could grab like 20 people randomly and all their feeds will be completely different. But I feel like on YouTube, some people's they're gonna like have some similar recommendations, etc. And I just don't know how you would be able to manage the content being shown to everyone whenever everyone's page is so uniquely catered to like them individually. I just don't know how it would work, honestly. But if anyone else has anything they'd like to add.
Claire, any thoughts that you want to bring forward?
Hmm.
No. That's okay. We have some great answers in the chat here. Foster says, I think a social media movement among creators would work well to push this idea. Annalise says, I think it's a great movement, but I don't think it'll work well because platforms rule over everyone. This, and then this next comment, which just made me chuckle, but like not in a good way. We saw how long the ban lasted. Like posting on TikTok is a creator's main platform, but the council, I feel, would not last. And I think that this just comes down to the crux of these platforms are political and economic structures and systems. And so how do they gain power over that? I think becomes the ultimate like question. And then Geraldo says, I believe that it will impact the platform and the creator. Bailey is chiming in. I think the TikTok Creator Council is a good idea to help creators feel like they have more power and get more of a say in decision making. I think, though, that platform leaders would be against the councils. This could hinder their money-making ability. It all comes down to power control, and the platforms right now have the cards, I think, is what we're seeing a lot of people saying in not only in this discussion, but in the comment chat. Personally, I don't know if the council would work, but I do think it'd be a great start to get creators more involved in decision making. I think it's such a good idea, and platforms should want to embrace that, because the creativity that content creators bring forward is what makes us want to be on those places. And when these places start to feel like just more of the same, have you had this happen on any platforms like Facebook, for example, where it's just like the same stuff over and over again? You don't really want to be there anymore. Evan says, I think that TikTok governments of creators could go a long way in the line of communication to the platform. Like the NBA, they have a players association that provides input on the current state of the NBA and player, franchise, or even legal issues. This could operate the same for social media platforms to provide a healthier platform and consumer to creators. That's such a logical, rational response, though. Yes, Evan should be in charge of all platforms. Foster says, that he agrees with Annalise. Creators don't have benefits like providing healthcare, job security, and so forth. So yeah, that's the comments. Any reflections on those?
I just wanted to add a little something just to leave us on to think about. So whenever I was doing the research for this, personally, I was thinking like it's a great idea. I think it would be so helpful in the perfect world, but the truth is it's really hard to get everybody to agree. So no matter what, there's always going to be people that aren't happy. So there are definitely things that could be changed, and like I think that everybody's going to agree on like the algorithm and everything that we've been talking about, how it's not fair and pushing people to the spotlight who don't necessarily deserve that. I think that's definitely something we can all agree on. But for the most part, it's going to be really hard to settle on something. So even with the council, I think they'll have the creators in mind, and they'll have the best of heart for them. But I think that with the platforms, I don't think they would take the chance to lose any money, no matter what. Even if it is like benefiting the creators, I don't think that they would want to do that. And then it just brings us back to what do we need to do to make everybody happy on these platforms?
Such a thought-provoking question, Isabella, and I really appreciated that. We're going to turn it back, I believe, to Claire to just wrap it up. You have a couple minutes.
All right, so today we learned about algorithms and the secretive world of algorithmic gossip, from crowdsourcing data to creators exposing hidden biases. It's clear that YouTube's success is not really about talent. It's more about strategy, community, and just, who can pull the most strings, I guess, the most gossip. Just to summarize a couple more things, we learned about how algorithms dictate what gets seen and what doesn't get seen, how gossip is more a survival tool instead of anything else, and how platforms hold immense power, but creators are pushing back for advocacy and industry influence. So if you're a content creator, join the conversation, share your experiences, and I feel like it's really up to creators to inform their audiences to make a change if that's what the ultimate goal is.
Big round of applause for group one. You did it. That was such an outstanding show. My goodness.
Thank
So
you.
It was so entertaining, so informative. I enjoyed every bit of that.
I enjoyed every single minute, Angie. And what a great way to kick off our shows for this semester. You were articulate, you were well-researched, you had compelling stories that not only bridge sort of real life, but also the theoretical aspects that we asked you to tackle. And you did so beautifully and so wonderfully as a team. So thank you for that. This was the perfect way to start us off, and we are very, very, very proud of you. So give this team a round of applause. How do you think they did, Angie?
I think they did spectacular. I mean, again, I think this is a great, great, strong way to start. I think you have set a very, very good example for your peers, and it was very, very entertaining to watch. Just on a little side note, I had a lot of family members and a lot of friends that I just recommended the live stream to, and I got like texts throughout the whole show. Like, what the heck? What the heck? Like, this is amazing. And then, my friend was asking, like, is there more? And I was like, I mean, there will be a show later today in the next few weeks. But yeah, these guys killed it. So congratulations, guys.
Yeah, you knocked it out of the park. I don't want there to be any question in your minds that this is an example show. You did an outstanding job. Just to kind of wrap things up for the class, this week our social media labs are about going live on social media and a reflection on that process. Make sure you take screenshots and include those in your process. Thank you for submitting your content assignments last night. We're really, really excited to dig into those. Angie, you'll be the first one to dig into it. Make sure you've given us a cloud drive link that we can actually edit, though. And if you haven't, change that now. Moving into next week, we're going to be talking about the age of influence and influencers. I'll start with a lecture on Monday, and then we'll be back on Wednesday. Angie checked. We are streaming across all platforms, and there's random people on Twitch. This is such a fun experiment. Eventually, we're going to move the whole class audience onto Twitch just to see what it's like. But basically, great first show. Really good example for all the other groups that are going to be coming behind you. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.